All is well in Leafs Nation after a statement win over the Colorado Avalanche. Is it time to get back to planning the parade? You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast for the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. What's happening, Dave? How are we feeling after that one?
Oh, feeling pretty good. Feeling good, especially if you're a Joseph Woll fan after that one.
Yes. Oh, yeah. If you were a Joseph Woll supporter and you were hoping that come playoff time, he was going to be between the pipes, this is a big feather in his cap to adding to that resume, showing that he can get the job done. He can win big games against big-time teams. Because that performance he put on against the Colorado Avalanche, 38 saves against Colorado. I don't know if you could say he goalied them. It's not like, the Avalanche. It wasn't like a barrage of high-danger, grade-A chances. But he kept them busy all night. And look, if there's one thing that you want from a goaltender, it's make the stops you have to. And he did that tonight. I thought that he was obviously excellent and a big reason. I think the biggest reason as to why the team got the full 2 points. Leafs with a 2-1 win over the Colorado Avalanche. And with that win, Dave, Toronto, it's so funny, man. Like we were sky is falling after the loss to the Ottawa Senators, and they had only had one regulation win in like an 8-game span. Yet here we are 2 games later. They beat the crap out of the Calgary Flames. They win a pretty solid game against the Colorado Avalanche. They at least played them well. And you look now, and somehow, some way, Dave, this team's tied at the top of the division with the Florida Panthers. They both have 85 points. Is the divisional race back on, Dave?
I mean, at this rate, it has to be, considering like it was never really. I would say this: it was looking bleak for Toronto, but I mean, we could never really say it was officially like done. But like it kind of just goes to show, like 3 games from now could be a totally different picture in terms of how we're going to see the standings. This is what makes it so intriguing with this format. I mean, I'm sure we can talk about that a little later, but yeah. I just think that, again, Florida's lost 2 in a row, and we kind of said it after the Senators game, like missed opportunity with Florida losing games. With Tampa, 6-3, they're technically 6-3-1, but it was when they were losing their games. The Leafs had chances, right, to kind of put themselves ahead. So it's just kind of crazy how, you pick up two wins in a row, how much that changes the whole picture. Because I think many would have said after Saturday, no chance that they have a shot at the division.
Yeah, no, and it was more so at this point they're looking in the rearview mirror at Ottawa storming up to try and take their spot as a divisional spot and have the Leafs be in the wild card race. And look, again, it's only 2 games. I'm being very, very coy when I say, playing the parade. Obviously, we're a long ways away from that. It's not like tonight's game was an absolute Picasso. Like, they got a lot of good lucky bounces tonight, obviously. Like, both those goals weren't necessarily as you would write them up. That's not how you expect this team to score. You get a bounce off of an Avalanche player and it goes into the net for the Matthews goal. And then the Steven Lorentz goal. I mean, how often do you see that? I don't know what the hell, the official was doing, but he literally, as if he was, trying to stop a penalty kick in soccer, just takes a good dive, stops the puck on a dime for Steven Lorentz to grab it, come in, and really nice shot by him. I guess you can give him credit for the shot that he had there to beat Mackenzie Blackwood off the rush. But, they got some help, and then they got great goaltending. And what also happened tonight, Dave? They won the special teams battle. And what did we say was going to be an absolute necessity if they're going to give themselves a chance to beat Colorado? They had to win the special teams battle. They go 1-for-1 on their lone power play opportunity. And yes, they allowed one power play goal, but only one. And they also scored a shorthanded goal. So they ended up +1 on the night when it came to special teams, and they won by a goal. Go figure, Dave. Go figure.
Yeah, go figure, because when we look back at the last few games, when we look back at their playoff history, it's always kind of been a glaring thing, right? They just cannot find a way to get those. It's not even like get the power. It's like certain moments in the game where it's like, all right, here's a power play coming up. Good chance to either take the lead, get back into the game, take things like that, and they don't. But you look at who's the catalyst of this push to get the power play going. Auston Matthews, three power play goals. His last 3 goals have been on the power play. Right now, I don't think that was his intention to score on that, but you'll take it anyway. But
you know what that is too, though, Dave? Like, he had some real crap luck all season long. Like, the puck luck has all gone negative. And last year, everything went right for him. And that it has to when you score 69 goals. I think we've come to realize how near impossible that actually is to do in today's NHL. And he somehow did it. And it's because he was getting those bounces on a nightly basis. There was a stat put out the other night by Mark Masters about how many multi-goal games Auston Matthews has had. The one in Calgary, just the third one that he had this year. Last year, he had 18 multi-goal games en route to that 69-goal season. That's a big reason why he got 69 goals. He was getting those bounces, and that has not been the case for the majority of this season. But now you're seeing everything kind of regress to the means, and we're getting some positive regression with that shooting percentage. This guy had a shooting percentage sub 12% going into that Calgary game. He has 3 goals his last 2 games. He's got a goal in 3 straight. And now all of a sudden the shooting percentage has ticked up and it's a hair over 13%. So you're getting it closer to that average of 16% that he's had throughout his career. So it was only a matter of time before those goals started to come in. But to your point, Dave, they always needed this to happen in order to get this team back on track, in order to get back into the win column, to pile up some W's, to have good showings against good teams. They needed their best players to show up. And Auston Matthews has definitely done that over the course of the last couple of games. He's starting to look more like his old MVP self in these last couple here.
yeah, I mean that's pretty much it, right? He is when your best player is playing like your best player, good things generally happen, right? Now, there's more than just Auston Matthews' strong play that's kind of led the Leafs in this kind of resurgence the last few games, but it's very apparent when he's at his best. When he's at his best tonight. When he was on the ice, he was noticeable. Yep. Going to the net, Matthew and I probably feel so bad that he missed that grade A opportunity in front of that, because that should have been it in the back of the net, right? Like, when he's like that, we're seeing the Auston Matthews that we know. And I'm kind of wondering, like, I know that he's been ailing and dealing with, the injury, but like maybe it was a little more than just the injury. Maybe it was frustration on his part, right?
Yeah.
And he's starting to feel I think he said after the game, it's nice to kind of be home, kind of being in a familiar environment, after that lengthy road trip, which I think maybe just that reset.
A couple like the right before going to the Four Nations tournament, they had that West Coast trip, and then coming out of the Four Nations tournament, they had the one home game, and then they went on an absolute tear. And went on not a tear winning wise, but they had like 4 or 5 straight road games, came home for one game, and then went back out onto the road for a couple more. So maybe it's a combination of things, but and Auston Matthews playing like the star he's supposed to be, leading the charge the way that he's paid to and the way that he's expected to with the C on his chest is good to see. And you're hearing from Craig Berube, you're hearing from Brad Treliving that, he's not only leading the charge off on the ice, but, in the room the last week where it's coming to, telling the team to give their head a shake. Like, he's leading by example, and he's been the best player, and he's challenging everyone else to raise to his level. And, a lot of guys have done that the last 2 games. Now, it's only 2 games, right? It's only 2 games. We got to see this for a much longer stretch before we can really get back to the parade planning here, Dave. But it is encouraging to see after what was probably a month stretch of pretty poor hockey from this team. Last couple games getting back to looking like a playoff squad. That's for sure. All right, on the other side, we'll come back. We'll get to the 3 stars of the game, and they get right back at it. Night 2 of a back-to-back. The New York Rangers are waiting for the Toronto Maple Leafs. So we'll tee up that game for you guys as well. I'm Mike DiStefano with Dave Morassutti. You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
Today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you just stop managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I just realized how much I was spending on different things that really were costing me a lot in the long run. Now I can budget smarter and save more. And instead of using multiple apps, it's so simple to use Monarch because you can check your finances, spending, and even long-term plans all in one convenient app. And managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track and shared personal accounts, shared accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year.
Did you know getting a good night's sleep is the #1 recipe for long-term success in life? I didn't. It took me way longer to realize than I'd like to admit. It was years of tossing and turning. I was always tired. I never felt like I could live up to my potential, but not anymore. Thanks to Bear Mattress. I used their sleep quiz and I matched with the Elite Hybrid. It's perfect for side sleepers like me. Now I wake up energized. I'm getting deeper sleeps and I'm ready to attack the day. No matter how you sleep, Bear Mattress has a match for you with a focus on recovery, cooling, and pressure relief to upgrade your sleep and improve your overall quality of life. Go to bearmattress.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL at checkout for 40% off site-wide. This offer is not available anywhere else. You have to use my promo code on the very last page of checkout to get this discount. That's bearmattress.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL for 40% off site-wide. Bearmattress.com, promo code LOCKEDONNHL.
Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you, coming off a win over the Colorado Avalanche, 2-1 in regulation. So a regulation victory for the Maple Leafs. That's now 2 in a row that they've got, and it's got them back tied with the Florida Panthers at the top of the division. 85 points, sitting 2 points clear of the Tampa Bay Lightning, who now are in third place. So it's going to be a wild, wild race all the way to the bitter end. And Toronto's got to pick up as many points as possible to try and still try and get that #1 seed, because it's going to be important to get that top seed. So they could avoid one of Florida or Tampa in that first round. And it's looking likely that it's going to be whoever wins the division will get to see Ottawa in round 1. And man, I think we'd all love to see a Battle of Ontario in round 1 of the playoffs. But before we get too far and before we kind of put a bow on last night's game between the Avs and the Leafs, let's get to our 3 stars of the game. Dave, your first star, who was it?
Well, I would have. I was gonna joke and say Kelly Sutherland, but I'll give it to Joseph Woll.
Thank
Because
you, officials.
thank you. So we can't. I guess we can't complain about the refs for a little bit. Is that what happens now? We can't
Well,
complain.
the Carlo penalty was also kind of dumb, but anyway.
Yeah, it was. But yeah, Joseph Woll. They don't win that game if it wasn't for Joseph Woll. Like,
No.
At what point in the game did you figure he had it? Like this was going to be a pretty tough night for Colorado.
Pretty early because he just looked like calm between the pipes. And when Joseph Woll looks calm, and it also like it felt like the Leafs were playing with good structure as well in front of him. So when you got that and they're keeping, the Avalanche to some fairly perimeter play, I think that's usually a pretty good indication that it could be one of those nights for Toronto. Because you look at how Toronto played in the first month of the season, that's what it looked like, right? Solid defensively, didn't give up a whole lot, kept things to the perimeter, and the goaltenders made the saves that they had to and came up big on made a couple of big stops, couple of grade A's along the way. And that's what you saw out of Joseph Woll tonight. And yeah, I pretty early on, I was like, okay, Woller's in one. Woller's in his game. And he ended up stopping 38 of 39, got my first star as well. And I don't know. I think Joseph Woll is like that number one goalie spot, that game one starter's job is still very much up for grabs. And Joseph Woll, I think, was challenged tonight by getting the start. I don't know about you, but it kind of surprised me. I thought it was going to be Stolarz to get the start. The fact that it was Joseph Woll makes me believe that Berube still feels like it is an open competition for someone to grab that net in game one. And the way that Woll played tonight, he certainly is gunning for that job. And whether or not this one game or his last couple games is enough to tip the scales his way, I don't know. But if he continues to play like that, it'll be hard not to go to that guy come game one of the playoffs.
Well, that's it, right? Like I was talking to somebody. It's funny because I was a friend of mine had me on his show today, and we were talking about the goaltending. I said, like, right now, like at that point, this was before the Colorado guy, but says, it looks like maybe likely Anthony Stolarz has a bit of the edge because of his body of work throughout the season. I said, but what you can't count out when it comes to Joseph Woll, yeah, he hasn't played this much and they got to manage that workload, but you can't discredit what he has done in the postseason for this team. When the chips are down and when the competition is at its best, he's performed. I think this was another example of it, right? Like, I'm sure there was a bit of a conversation with the goaltenders and Craig Berube and saying, somebody go and win the job. We're going to give you that opportunity. And I think that's what we saw from Joseph Woll tonight, is saying, don't forget about me, right? Like, I'm more than capable also stepping in and, being a difference maker especially in a game against a team like Colorado that has been, they've been on such a run lately ever since the trade deadline. Like,
that's their first regulation loss in 10 games. They're 8-0-1 in their last 9 coming into tonight. So Toronto, it's first time in 10 games that Colorado wasn't able to pick up a point in the standings. So kudos, and that's full credit to the Maple Leafs and mainly to Joe Woll. Again, 38 saves tonight. I thought that he played excellent, and it's interesting. I saw Sportsnet Stats put out a little stat graphic here about Joseph Woll, and it just goes to show, like, when he's busy, it feels like he plays a lot better. This season he's 13-2 with a .920 save percentage when facing 30 or more shots on goal. So when he's busy, when he is being tested early and tested often, it gets him into the game, and he loves that big workload. 13-2, the .920 save percentage, pretty solid. So Joseph Woll, not that you love giving up 30 shots a night, but you at least feel comfortable if it's going to be one of those that you'll get good goaltending from that guy, because he does like to to get a lot of action. Likes to see the rubber quite often. All right, second star of the game, Dave. Who you got?
Got to give it to Poppy. Got to give it to the captain.
Yep, same.
The last 2 games, he's looked like a totally different. Like I wouldn't call it a different player, just back to being Auston Matthews.
Right.
That's more of what we wanted to see from him. He had I don't know how much he played against Nathan MacKinnon tonight, but he did have his fair share of ice time against MacKinnon in this game.
They played at 5-on-5, 13 minutes, 27 seconds. It's actually, he was matched up against MacKinnon more than anyone else all night long.
Yeah.
So
it again, for him to be a driver of the offense while also dealing with that defensive responsibility, that's what we want to see from Auston Matthews. I thought that line was really good tonight. He was the catalyst of it. He was all over. Again, what I liked about the goal, it wasn't a pass, hold, shoot. It was a get it down. It was obviously a set play. That puck did not stay on his stick very long. And that's, again, decisive play. And I think that's what has been real difference that I've been seeing from him in the last couple of games.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what you want to see moving forward. And again, it's just the law of averages suggests that this guy eventually was going to go on a bit of a bender. He was going to get those bounces and that shooting percentage was going to average out. And feels like it's happening, right? You can look at that game against Ottawa, that gimme goal that he had there against the Senators, and with a wide open cage. Like, that's one where it's like, okay, that's the type of bounce that he needs and needed to get on the board. I mean, it was technically a goal at 5-on-5, but was it really? I don't know. And then you look at tonight, a good bounce that he gets, and Leafs need that, and they need him playing at the rate that he is. And it's not just scoring. Like, it seems like he's also back to defending well. Like, there was a time this year where it seemed like he wasn't even all that engaged defensively, and I think it was because the injury was hurting him. And honestly, he may not have had the strength, like, in his back or whatever is ailing him to defend and play as hard as he's capable of. And now he's starting to get back to that. So it really is good to see Matthews playing a full 200-foot game and coming up big for the Maple Leafs. I think I saw a stat too that with his go-ahead goal there in the first period, which I didn't know that we considered any go-ahead goal as like a go-ahead goal unless it still counted as like a game one. Anyways, he passed
Matt
Sundin, all time for go-ahead goals. I thought those got erased the second that it got tied, but I guess they continue to track those regardless if it stands.
Yeah, I was very confused when I saw that stat too from Leafs PR. But hey, who are we to argue with Leafs PR?
I guess Leafs history, buddy, making history. He's taken over the history books. He's closing in on Sundin's all-time goal record. He'll have that by next year for sure. All right, third star of the game, Dave.
I'm gonna go with Jake McCabe. I'll give it to Tannen McCabe because they're a pairing. They do the work together.
Yeah.
Nathan MacKinnon was doing his best to be dangerous, but there wasn't a lot of production from him tonight. That's because Jake McCabe understood the assignment. Chris Tanev understood the assignment. Try to take away that guy's time and space. Don't let him get any momentum, really. And I felt like they really that was like the top four was really good, but they really stood out to me with the way that they shut things down against Colorado.
Yeah, I want to give mine to Carlo and Riley, that pairing. So I thought just overall defensively, I thought that the team played well. When those two were on the ice, the Leafs at 5-on-5, 58% expected goals. And considering that, it was a night where the Leafs gave up a lot more shots. They didn't give up quality. Carlo and Riley on the ice for just two high danger chances against all game. but they were on the ice for 3 for Toronto. So, a positive when it comes to grade A's and high danger chances with those two on the ice. So, and it really looks like Morgan Riley's starting to look a lot more comfortable playing with a guy like Brandon Carlo, and that was the hope, right? I think you saw it tonight again, feeling more comfortable jumping up into the rush. He's feeling more comfortable defending with Carlos. So I think that pairing only going to get better. And I thought they played pretty well tonight. They didn't allow much of anything. I said 2 high danger chances throughout the entire game. Considering I think their offensive zone starts was 45%. Pretty solid for those two, I thought. So I wanted to give them some credit as well. No love for Steven Lorentz, huh? Game winner, no love.
Oh, I mean, that was a beautiful shot. I'll give him kudos for heads up play because he understood very quickly that he needed to take advantage of the bounce off Kelly Sutherland, that's for sure. But I feel like it was a good moment for Steven. Really good post game sound on it too. I don't know if you heard, just kind of in the feels a little bit of what this season has meant to him and putting on a Leafs jersey and stuff like that. So it's nice. Like, it was just a good stand-up play from him. I didn't expect that shot to go in. I don't think he did either, but they all count the same. I'll say that.
Yeah, I'll let me find that quote actually, because it was pretty good. Because it was something to the effect of, I can't find it right now, but it was something to the effect of he still takes pride putting in that Maple Leafs jersey, putting on the Maple Leafs jersey every single night.
Here,
so for him to come up big, go ahead.
It's surreal every game, and I take pride in pulling that jersey over every single game, scoring like a goal like tonight. If you think about being a little kid jumping in the glass, I love doing what I do. And there's a picture, and then credit Jesse Blake, who put a photo of Steven Lorentz currently in a Leafs jersey and Steven Lorentz when he was a kid in a Leafs jersey.
Now, 5-on-5 numbers weren't as rosy for Lorentz and that fourth line. They got absolutely caved in.
If you're trying to figure out who are the guilty parties of what happened in terms of Colorado owning the pace of play, fourth line didn't exactly have a great night.
No, and I gotta tell you, I know we're still only a few games in, but Scott Laughton's got to figure it out, man. Because
actually, Craig Berube did speak about Scott Laughton after the game too. Do you want to hear what he had to say, or you want to talk? Why
don't we talk about it on the other side? Because whatever Berube had to say, he's got to implement when they take on the New York Rangers tonight, night 2 of a back-to-back. We'll tee that up next here in the Locked On Leafs podcast. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you a chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. I got my eye on a few underdogs this year, and FanDuel's making it easy to back them with spreads, totals, and game props. With the tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting to bet on. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when I win, I get paid instantly. No waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. The Locked On Leafs podcast continues. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you, as always, each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. The Locked On Leafs podcast is free and available wherever you get a podcast and also up on YouTube as well. If you enjoy the content and you want to keep locked into what's going on with your beloved Toronto Maple Leafs, make sure you are subscribed to the Locked On Leafs podcast for that daily dosage of Maple Leafs. So the Leafs back in action tonight. So second half of back-to-back cross-border travel. So going from Toronto into New York City. So not a crazy long flight into New York. It's like an hour-long flight, but still got to go through customs and all that. The Rangers actually favored on FanDuel, -120, despite not really playing all that great of hockey recently. They've just one regulation win in their last 8 games. But yeah, the Leafs taking on the Rangers tonight. And before we broke, we were talking about Scott Laughton and his struggles since coming to Toronto at the trade deadline. And you have the quote on what Craig Berube said we need to see from Scott Laughton moving forward. And I'd imagine that'll start tonight here against the Rangers.
Yeah, so the Leafs at fourth line was out attempted 10-0 in the game, just so everyone knows what the stats are like. And Berube was asked about Laughton. I think he's trying to.
The fourth line didn't have a single shot attempt at 5-on-5 tonight.
Apparently, yeah, according to Luke Fox.
Actually,
so Berube ended up dropping Holmberg with Lawrence and Laughton and brought Yarncroc up to play with Tavares and Nylander. I also think at one point McMahon played with Tavares and Nylander as well. So what's going on?
0%. Let me just quickly go over this because this is actually quite staggering.
Yeah, go ahead.
They played 4 minutes and 33 seconds tonight at 5-on-5 as a fourth line. So not a whole lot of time out there, but in that 4.5 minutes, they were out. The shot attempts were 10-0. Actual shots on goal, 5-0 for the Colorado Avalanche when Lawrence, Laughton, and Yarncroc were on the ice. They gave up 7 scoring chances, 3 of them high danger chances, and they didn't give up they themselves didn't have a single goal, a single chance, a single glimmer on net, and had an expected goals of 0, Dave. Yeah, I don't think we ever need to see that trio on the ice ever again.
No, and so obviously Berube was asked about Laughton, and it's him being on the fourth line is not what you were expecting. So Berube said, I think he's trying to probably play the game without making mistakes, and he's overthinking things. Be aggressive, do your thing, and that will come around. I do believe that. He wants to do well. He just has to loosen up.
Do you think, so we're on the second night of a back-to-back, I think it's possible we see, could see a lineup adjustment, get some fresh legs in there. David Kampf hasn't played in a couple of games. I'm not suggesting they take Scott Laughton out of the lineup. I think that would be, people would riot.
Yeah, you're creating a firestorm if you do that for sure.
But what they could do to try and help Laughton and get him kind of going in the right direction is maybe you put David Kampf at 4C, you keep Domi at 3C, you take Pontus Holmberg out, and you toss Laughton in the top 6 on the wing. And you say, hey, just go get pucks. Go get pucks and get them to John, get them to Willie, and then just be responsible defensively when you guys have those matchups. Like, that's what we want you to do tonight. Don't worry about playing down the middle. Don't worry about playing center, winning faceoffs, and having those extra responsibilities. Let's just get your mind right. And once you're playing at an elite level, similarly to what they did with Max Domi, they got him playing right when he was on the wing with Matthews in that Florida game. And then it's, once you get confidence back, you can go back to doing what you're good at. And maybe that's a way that they can try and get the best out of Scott Laughton. Maybe they try and shift him over to the wing for a game.
And I really think that right now it must be there's pressure on him right now. He's coming in here, big deadline edition, and he's trying to figure out where he fits, right? Because he's been in Philly for so long, right? You have to kind of remember it's a whole new scenario, a whole new situation for him, and so I think that's probably the best idea is kind of let him be in a positive situation. I knew the fourth line was not going to work for him, just because they don't play a lot, and it's not what he's meant to do. He's not meant to be in that role. I'm not saying he's not capable of playing that role.
Well, I don't know. To me, I look at the lineup, and it was more like a 3A, 3B, right?
Yeah.
Like, it was still the matchup role. It was supposed to be, at least.
I just think that there's I think there was just a better way to use him. And I don't think that was it. I said, if you're not going to play him at 3C, play him on the left wing with Tavares and Nylander, because I think he would be a better fit for there than Holmberg. Because as good as I know Holmberg, they brought in the numbers of things he does well. He's got the effort and all that. That guy is where offense dies on your stick. At least get somebody out there who doesn't have offense down his stick. And I think Laughton is still very capable of, as you said, chasing down pucks, getting open opportunities. And he kind of spelled Tavares a little bit on those defensive matchups at center too, right? Tavares is really good on the draw. He doesn't necessarily have the foot speed. I know Laughton. I keep wanting to say Lorenz. Laughton is not the fastest guy, but he's also more defensively responsible, I think, than Tavares is, right?
Well, he
Or
hasn't
at least
been
more.
in a short time with Toronto, but
I think just let him just tell, as you said, if this is what you are telling him to do, go out and just play. Like hopefully he gets that message to just go out and play.
Well, that's probably the only lineup change that I consider if I was Craig Berube, because I think I'm happy with the way that everything else has kind of fallen into place over the last couple of games. So that's probably the only one that I'm looking to make that difference. Maybe you bring out Holmberg for Laughton, you move him up the line, or you bring out Holmberg for Kampf, you stick Kampf back to his 4C role, you move Laughton up the lineup, and maybe you can get something sparked there for him, because it's just not working right now. So they're taking on the Rangers tonight, and I mean, if Laughton knows anyone, it's those Metropolitan Division teams. So he's played the Rangers a lot in his career, so a lot of familiarity against these teams and against these top tier players. So if there was a game for him to kind of show up and show some value, it would be a game here against New York. And so far on the season, they've played twice already, both teams with a win. New York won the first meeting. Toronto won the second meeting just a couple of weeks ago, 3-2. Stolarz, if you recall, standing on his head in that game. At least we're outshot, 35-18 or 35?
Yeah,
the
Leafs came away with a little bit of robbery on that game.
Yeah, that they Stolarz goalied that one. Absolutely goalied that game. And he's going to be in net again tonight. So I wonder if that also factored into the decision to go with Woll against Colorado, because Stolarz did not play well against Colorado the first time, and he did play extremely well against the Rangers. And let's be honest, the Leafs need 2 points against New York more than they needed against Colorado too. So that could be part of it. But Stolarz is going to get the start here, and his game slipped a little bit, so I think it's going to be important that he can come back. And honestly, the last time he had like a great game was probably against New York, so it makes sense mentally to put him out there against the Rangers once again. So hopefully Stolarz can respond to Joe Woll's big game and have one of his own here tonight against New York.
Yeah, again, it's the Leafs are always going to do better when both goalies are rolling. So hopefully they get that from them, because they need to get the points. You get a win here. I don't know who the Panthers are playing tonight. Panthers are playing the Blue Jackets. So it's actually they got the Blue Jackets and they have the Capitals next. So like it's a couple of tough games there for Florida. So if you're the Leafs,
take
advantage, right? New York, it's a good test for Toronto too, because New York has put themselves back into that playoff conversation with the Blue Jackets losing 4 in a row. Oh, okay, so maybe Florida does have a bit more of a chance than I thought. But this is a perfect game this is a perfect stretch for Toronto. Very tough matchups, but ones that you get good goaltending. Auston Matthews continues to play the way he has. Kind of like their chances.
Yeah, just continue to play the way they have the last couple of games here, and they should have an opportunity to pile up some points, pick up wins, and hopefully they can get back in the right direction. When you look at the team's remaining schedule and who they've got the rest of the way in terms of strength of schedule, the Leafs have the second easiest schedule the rest of the way. Second easiest schedule. So they've got to make sure that they win the games they have to. Just 14 games remaining. They got 2 against Florida. Those will be pivotal, absolutely pivotal. 1 against Tampa, the Kings, the Canes. And that's really it in terms of looking at teams that are above 500. Then they've got the Sharks and the Preds and the Sabres and the Ducks and Philly and Detroit. There's winnable games, a lot of winnable games down the stretch. And they got the Rangers tonight, another team that has not been playing well. Like I said earlier, there's 1 regulation win And their last 8 games, they're starting to slip a little bit. I saw John Chick of the Locked On Rangers podcast have a little meltdown. We were talking about on the Locked On NHL show. He submitted his Locked On Now, and he basically said, let's close up shop. This Rangers team is unserious and not a playoff caliber squad. So we'll get to see that firsthand tonight and see if if the sky is falling in New York, if it's really falling, or if it's kind of like what it was in Toronto, where it's been a tough few weeks, but it's a talented enough squad where they can kind of get it going. Although it's been a weird season for New York this year, but they're still only 1-2 points out of a playoff spot, so they desperately need to be picking up points here too. So they'll be highly spirited, and it should be a solid game tonight. I am definitely excited for that one. All right, that's going to do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti. Follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. We'll be back with another episode for you guys tomorrow. Enjoy the game tonight. Go Leafs, go. Until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.